in that moment, I realized it required actually closing down that business in order to heal and in order to kind of put myself back together and re-envision and recreate in a way that does match my capacity.
What would the world look like if people felt like they mattered? Welcome to the Lead with Love podcast, exploring what it means to lead with love in business and life. I'm your host, Jada Selner, and in this show, I'll share meaningful conversations to help you, the creative, the entrepreneur, the world changer, reach more people, go after your dreams, and serve your community with love. I appreciate you joining me. Now, let's get cozy and start today's episode. If you feel exhausted and you are starting to feel that call to slow down and simplify your whole life and your business, this episode is for you because we are talking about listening to your inner truth, paying attention to your body's signals, those signs of when it is too much, you're burning out. And also letting go of physical spaces. And we talk about letting go of homes that we've lived in, businesses that we've built. And we also go into building a sisterhood of support. And right now you are listening to episode 191 of the Lead with Love podcast. And I'm in conversation with one of my closest friends, Michelle Long. I feature Michelle in chapter 2 of my book, She Builds, the Anti-Hustle Guide to Grow Your Business and Nourish Your Life, which is available to pre-order right now at shebuilds.com. And you can go and head over there to claim your bonuses and really just allow yourself to close out the year and start the new year with more intention, clarity, and focus. And I'm so excited because this week I have the book in my hands. Oh my goodness. But you will not be able to get your hands on it until November 15th at your favorite bookstore. So please, please, please go to shebuilds.com to get yourself a copy so you can celebrate with me right when it comes out. A little bit more about Michelle. She is the founder of the Practice for Women. I actually saw her build it from the ground up, from an idea to actually turning it into this movement where she is transforming the world by supporting women to step into their truth and claim the life that they desire. And Michelle knows her stuff. She has been a teacher of feminine spirituality, yoga, and women's leadership since 2002. And she also has a master's degree in holistic health education. She's a certified woman's wholeness coach and owned and managed a woman's yoga and healing center for 10 years, which I had the privilege of working at when I was kind of at my rock bottom and rebuilding myself and my business as an entrepreneur, a mama, a wife. I got to, be one of her front desk receptionists. And through that, we became really close friends, and both of our businesses have bloomed and really grown. And we've been such a huge support for each other over the many, many years. And what's really powerful about Michelle's work is she gathers women to connect online and in person. And she's just an amazing facilitator of allowing people to circle up, get vulnerable, get real, get in their bodies, ground themselves, connect to breath. I have taken all her classes, all her programs. She is amazing. If you want to learn more about her work, go to thepracticeforwomen.com. And she offers this really cool weekly Sunday service, which is just a beautiful 30-minute reset on a Sunday to create ritual and community and connection with yourself and others and with Michelle. And Michelle is one of those people who is really taking a stand for women to remember their power and also heal their wounded feminine lineages. So it's some deep work, y'all. And I just feel so lucky to get a peek behind the scenes and also feel honored to introduce you to one of my best friends, Michelle Long. Michelle, you're here.
Hi, Jada. I'm so excited to be here with you finally.
I'm happy to have you on season 5 of the Lead with Love podcast. And we go way, way, way back. So you're such a very, very close friend of mine. And we first met, was it in 2012? Do you remember?
I think I was thinking about that this morning. I think it was 2012. And it was right after I opened my brick and mortar healing center for women in Walnut Creek, where you live.
Yeah. And I remember seeing, I had just closed down my brick and mortar in Kauai, Little Sprouts Playhouse, and we were looking for a space for George to rent to teach music classes. And then I landed on your website and I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I imagined wanting to create, but 10x. And we ended up, working together. You hired me basically as your front desk receptionist, and we would dream and strategize. I was also in the childcare room, like helping with the kids and all of that. And it's just such a fascinating experience for us to connect. I remember celebrating at the time, it was called, your healing center was called Bloom Retreat, and then turned into the practice. And that's a body of work that we'll definitely explore, because you still have the practice and it's just an evolution of what you built and created inside that sacred space. So I think it's so cool.
Yeah, it's been an evolution for both of us. And I remember you working for me, and I remember seeing you for the first time. You came into my space and you were curious about it. And it was like, when there's some people that you see and you instantly know they're going to be somebody in your life. I felt that the first time I saw you, I was like, that woman is going to be somebody in my life. And here we are 10 years later.
Yeah.
Supporting each other.
Yes, not only just business. I mean, at the time, I think I had my parenting blog that never took off. Like Simple Green Smoothies didn't even exist at that time. And I also remember the season when I was like, I think I have to quit and not work here anymore so I can focus on this other business.
That moment. You were starting Simple Green Smoothies and it was beginning to take off. It was the beginning phases of it. And then it started to take off. And then you came to me one day and you're like, I think I have to leave to go do Simple Green Smoothies. And I think I cried.
Yeah.
You can't leave me. I need you. You were amazing, of course. And just I think for me, it was just having that support. You were so supportive and you always have been. And you've always seen my vision and you've always believed in my work. And you've been one of those cheerleaders for me that is just always there. And I remember you saying in that moment, it's okay, we'll support each other in different ways and as entrepreneurs and sisters and friends. And that's exactly what happened. And we've been supporting each other in all of our chapters and evolutions for the last decade.
Yeah. And it feels, the form of support transformed and it was still there, but in a different way. And it's wild. I think that was my last paycheck working for you. And also just thinking about our mode of support as, what I talk about in She Builds in chapter 4, gather your support squad. And you have definitely been that solid rock for me as well, where we have supported and uplifted each other in our businesses. What do you feel for you in that journey of sisterhood and support? What has been most helpful for you? And kind of, because I know you tend to be more introverted and cozy. I'm very similar. And what has really worked for you in receiving support and also being able to show up and be in that form of sisterhood?
Well, yeah, yeah, I'm very introverted and cozy, and I like small circles of women, which I know you enjoy as well. And I think one of the things that's been amazing for me over the years is we've always been a part of a tight knit, soulful sister mind together, which is usually about 4 or 5 women max. And just having that support system always to lean on and to know that, I mean, we have it today. We were boxing each other this morning
Yeah.
about our kids and life and business and leadership and the grief and the pain and the losses and all the stuff we've been through. And just knowing that that's there for me and that I can lean on it at any given moment is, I think, like the currency that keeps me going, keeps me moving.
Yeah. I call it like we're parallel playmates. We are
Yeah.
literally on the same journey and
Yeah.
facing the same struggles, having very similar desires and visions, and being able to share strategies. And even though we may pay for outside support, coaching, healing, business strategists, that there's something so powerful about being in that tight knit circle. And I actually remember we went to a retreat, which actually
Mhm.
two of the people that were in our Soulful Sister Mind were Sarah Jenks and Nisha Moodley. But we went to their, I think it was the Live Free retreat in
Yeah.
Sonoma, wine country, California. And I remember them talking about friendship. And it was during that retreat where I was like, I want to go closer. I want to like grow closer with you, Michelle. Like it was a like me claiming it out loud. Like, let's go deeper. Let's be more vulnerable. Let's support each other on a more consistent basis. Because I think as adults, right, we make friends in a different way. It's like we don't have the school or the physical workplace, those things. And so we have to be more intentional in how we carve out that time because we also have relational commitments within our marriages, our kids. There's just so much on the plate. So I think it's so powerful to set the intention if I want something that's consistent and I want to put it on the calendar and prioritize it, which is what we did with the
Yeah.
Soulful Sister Mind and meeting like one Friday every month in person for a full day. I think it's just like a sacred process that, and I feel like everyone needs a
Yeah.
support squad in that form.
Yeah. And I think you and I have walked a very similar path. Our kids are the same ages and we're just going through life at a similar, the chapters of our life seem to be like matching up of where we are and where the kids are and where we are in relationship and business. And just to have that person to be so vulnerable with in all of it is like gold.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
I want to dive into your body of work and just how you show up in your business and your life. And the question that I always like to start with is what does leading with love mean to you? And how do you put love into practice inside your business?
Yeah. Well, something that I teach women is a practice of what I call self devotion. And to me, self devotion is really tuning in and listening to that honest, true voice inside of us that we all have. But we tend to ignore her and turn her volume down and turn up the volume of the outside world, right? And so self devotion to me is tuning in and listening to that truth and then actually honoring it and acting on it and following that and letting that be your guide or your compass. And so when you say, what does lead with love mean for me, especially, well, in all aspects of my life, it means devotion. It means, can I lead with that sense of truth and integrity and devotion, love. Devotion is love, right? For myself and for the work that I'm doing and people that I'm serving. And it feels like a deep, deep honoring.
How would you say that you are in relationship with that voice? Or was there a time where you turned the volume down and then basically how did you reconnect with that inner voice and self devotion for yourself? Was there a specific moment that you can remember?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's always been there, right? But when I owned my brick and mortar healing center that you were a big part of, it was a pretty big, robust business in the sense that I ran a big physical space and an expensive location. And we had, hundreds of people coming through our doors weekly, daily. I had, I think at one point, like 35 employees and contractors that I was holding and serving. And it was more than I could carry. It was more than I could hold. It was more than my capacity could hold. And there was a voice inside of me that kept saying, this is too much. This is too much. Like, listen, listen. And my body started to show signs and symptoms that it was too much, that I was carrying too much. But I kept turning that volume down and ignoring her and pushing through like we do in our daily lives, in our culture. We push through anyway. We push through when our body's telling us we don't feel good. We push through the headaches. We take on more. We say yes when everything in us is screaming no more, no more, right? And I did that for years in that business until literally my body just shut down, broke down, and was like, if you're not going to listen to me, I'm going to sit you down. And that was a major turning point and pivotal moment in my life where I had to sit down and listen for real and look at what was real and look at the patterns I was carrying in my business and look at what was happening so that I could shift it and change it. And in that moment, I realized it required actually closing down that business in order to heal and in order to kind of put myself back together and re-envision and recreate in a way that does match my capacity. So that was a big moment of not listening to that inner wisdom.
Yeah. And I'm curious just to kind of connect to that part of you that heard the voice. This is too much.
Yeah.
Why do you feel that you kept going and kept pushing anyways? What was driving you? What was
Yeah, I mean, this is at the core of what I teach women. I believe, especially as women, we have inherited what I call matrilineal patterns. And these are patterns and conditioning that we've literally inherited from generations before us. So I know that my mother was the woman that overgave and overserved and took on too much responsibility. We're conditioned to do that. We believe that we are not worthy or as valuable. We're often shown that we are worth less than men. And so we're constantly trying to keep up, compensate, and take on more and push through, right? And it's in our culture. It's how we've been taught and how we've been raised. And so I think that's why it can be so hard to hear the inner wisdom, the inner truth, that voice, because of these conditions and these patterns that we have been passed down. So a big realization of mine was like, oh, wow, I am living out the way my mother did in my business. And if I really want to live in devotion and in integrity, then I've got to look at what these patterns are so I can shift them and change them. And that happens from tuning in and starting to really listen to that voice. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think we hold on longer, right, than we should, or our voice, our body is telling us things and we just kind of like, no, I gotta stay. I gotta keep and not wanting to, in quote, give up, right? That there's something bad about letting go of something that is not serving us. Yeah.
I don't want to be a failure, right? What does that mean that I have to close my business? Am I a failure now? I'm letting people down. We worry about, and I was worried about what people would think. People aren't, I built a big community in there. Women were being served and their lives were being transformed. But the irony was that I was falling apart in a healing center.
Yeah.
And I cannot hold space for others and help others transform and heal if I'm on the floor in a big mess. Like this, it's just not, it can't happen that way, you know?
And I know letting go and closing your brick and mortar healing center was not like an immediate decision.
No.
Like how long would you say from when you're like, oh, I think maybe, like how long was that process to when you actually finally physically closed it down and announced it to your community and, you know, released the keys?
Yeah, it took 2 years from when I got sick to when I closed the door to that building. And it was because even when I was sick, even I was so sick, it was like darkness, underworld, like painful. And I still kept thinking, I can push through this. I'll get better. I can do this. Right. And there's still that, like, I was still pushing and my body kept saying, nope, 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 until finally, I think you were there with me. I think Julie Santiago was there and Amy Ehlers was there. And we were sitting in my studio in my space. And I think Julie said something to me like, Michelle, I think it's time to just burn it all down. And I remember just crying and just knowing and feeling the truth of that. I had to burn it down in order to rebuild myself and to heal. I knew that that was just what had to happen, but it took 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to highlight that because oftentimes when we hear the voice or the calling towards something else, and we don't even know what the something else is, but we know this in front of us is no longer serving us, just to normalize how long it takes us to wrap around emotionally, energetically, logistically, financially, just all of that. And I mean, you saw me moving from simple green smoothies to the work that I do today and how hard, and I feel like it was a 2 to 3 year journey, but it was like 2 years where it was just intense and your body and your heart knows, but you're still like, but can I make it work? Yeah. So what were the practices during that 2 years? And I know that this is what you teach your women that you guide in Circle, but what were some of the practices that were really helpful for you, that supported you in turning up the noise for your own voice and truth to navigate that transition of such a big pivot to burn it down and then rebuild yourself before you can even rebuild your next body of work?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was that, like the 2 years of closing it down. And then it's taken me a couple years post that to even be ready to step back into my business. So it was like many years of healing and yeah, the biggest things for me, and these are things that I do teach in my programs as well, is for one, compassion and really turning inward and feeling a sense of love and understanding, like, of course I ended up like that. Of course, like looking at where I came from, what was modeled for me through my mom, and just, of course, I wanted to take on as much as I could and be successful. Of course, right? So it wasn't my fault. And really practicing compassion for myself and sort of learning to mother myself in that way. And yeah, just feel a sense of gentleness for what I went through instead of judging. We can be so harsh with ourselves and judging. And so that's a big one. And then the inner listening, like I already spoke about, I call it sacred listening, and really tuning in and starting to listen to her and let her know that I'm no longer turning away from her. I'm turning towards her and I hear her and I see what's happening, and I'm here to listen and to start to honor the truth. And then really trust. A big one is self-trust, I think, for women, especially in leadership. And we haven't cultivated deep relationships of trust with ourselves. And so we have a lot of self-doubt. Like you were kind of thinking, that's what kept me in so long. Well, what if this happens? And fear. And so really cultivating that sense of self-trust and trusting that I know what's best for myself. And that comes with really stepping into my own sovereignty and self-authority, that I know what's best for me, not other people's ideas or expectations or rules, that I do. And that's where my power is, actually following what I know to be true.
And with our busy schedules and all the to-dos, the bottomless mimosa list of to-dos and caretaking and caregiving for not only ourselves, but our loved ones, how does someone make time, or how have you seen people make time, whether for your clients or for yourself, making time to have the compassion and the listening and the trust? Like, is that something that's just like easy for people to do? And like, all right, let me just start being compassionate with myself and kind, or are there certain words or phrases, or, just how do you make it a practical practice within your life? And I know your program is called The Practice.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because it is a practice. None of this is easy, right? And I think it's a choice, right? All of this is a choice. Am I going to choose myself and be, for me, the practice is living a life in devotion to myself and my needs, knowing that that is actually in service of my family and the people that I hold and the people that I serve. But I think what I learned, especially back in my brick and mortar space, when the practice, the body of work that I do now was born, was that women so easily did not show up for themselves. We had yoga and all these things, and they would sign up for 10 class passes and get excited, and they'd come a couple times and then they'd disappear and never come again, or call me 6 months to a year later, wondering if they still had classes and could they come. I started to see this was just a pattern innate in women. And so the practice was born from witnessing that too, and creating a space each week carved out where we show up with the same group of women to practice, and seeing that we need to actually carve out space for ourselves, like an appointment,
Yeah.
and have it on our calendar. And that's where I'm going every Monday night, knowing that I'm going to turn down the noise of the externals. I'm going to listen to myself. I'm going to tune in. And we have to do that. It becomes a non-negotiable. And then I think after a while, once we've been practicing and really digging in with that, then the practice becomes a way of life. For me, it's like, I move a lot slower. I take a lot of downtime. I do not feel guilty for resting. I love resting. It's like so important for my body and my nervous system. And so then it just starts to become a way of being.
Yeah. And I think it's so beautiful in your rebuilding. So burning it down or letting go of your brick and mortar space, that you are actually rebuilding a new way of doing your business. So before we dive into that, in the burning it down to rebuild, you made a big pivot to uproot your family from your literal family roots of California to Oregon. And I'm just curious if you could share a bit about what that process was like in making that shift, and for you and your family.
Yeah, well, that was another moment of hearing that call, or that voice was really inviting me to move out of the Bay Area. I was born and raised in Walnut Creek. And so as I was burning my business down, there was also this calling, like, you need to move. It's time to move. It's time to be in a different environment so that you can really, truly heal. I think there's a saying, like, it's hard to heal in the place where you got sick, something like that, right? Like, I needed to leave. And so that was a calling that did not make any practical sense on paper. Like, we had a cute little house in a neighborhood with friends and my family's there. Like nothing about it was practical, didn't make any sense. But I followed that call and we did. We moved, we sold our house and moved up near Portland, Oregon, and started a new life. And it was hard. I think that's the thing too. When we listen to the inner voice and follow that, there's like this dream or kind of like wish that it's going to all be like bubbles and rainbows and beautiful because we followed the call, but it's not. It's like an initiation. It's life. It's still messy. It's still full of grief, but it's what's growing you. It's what's growing me. It's what's healing me. And so we've been up here for 3 years now, and I have a beautiful new home with land, and it's quiet and it's spacious. And those were my words when I left. I just wanted quiet and spaciousness and time to heal. And that's what I got here. And it still is all of that, but it comes with growing pains in between for sure.
Yeah. I love that you named that. That was the word that was coming up for me. That growth, right? Following our callings doesn't mean that it's going to be rainbows and sunshine, but it's an invitation, an initiation to grow deeper, and also building that self-trust with yourself, right? To call your family into a new environment, to set the intention of quiet and spaciousness and healing. And you have like an amazing healing support team there. There's so many beautiful things that I see of what a gift that move has been for you and your family. One thing I would love for you to share, because it inspired my family and I when we just moved from our place of 9 years into a new place that we bought. You did a practice with your family to let go of this home. Could you just share a little bit about what you did to release your physical home that you lived in and grew your babies in?
I did it when we closed the brick and mortar space too. But yeah, really creating a ritual for, you talk about leading with love, and this is a ritual for leaving with love. And I remember as we were getting clear that we were going to leave, or when we put the house on the market, it was the day we put the house on the market. We stood in the backyard, the 4 of us. I have 2 kids, a boy and a girl. And at the time they were like 11 and 12. And we held hands and we were barefoot on the earth. And we just said, thank you, and went around and thanked our house and our home of 10 years and for everything it gave us. And we asked for what we wanted of this move and what we wanted to come in the future. And then we went inside the house. And this is the part that makes me want to cry, that I think you guys did too. And just sat in each room together of the house and shared. It makes me emotional, and shared memories from each room of the home, and sat on the floor and just talked about what happened in the family room, what happened in the kitchen, what happened in the kids' room, and just remembered. And it was just a really beautiful ritual to ground that we're not leaving with urgency and slamming doors, or just leaving with grace and love. And on the day that we did leave, we went around to the 4 corners of the home, and each of us had a stone, and we buried it and said a prayer, and really left that home with love and in love. And I think it's an important practice and reminder, whether we're leaving a home or a business or a relationship, to leave with gratitude and love for everything it's given us.
I just love that so much. And it definitely brings tears for me too, of just standing in the memory and the moments that are created. And that goes with you. Those lessons and the challenges and the growth and the beauty and the celebrations, all of that. We may be leaving something physically behind, but there's so much that we're bringing with us to the next season and chapter of our lives. So, and you said you did the same thing inside the brick and mortar space too.
I did. And we actually had a little funeral for the business. We called it a funeral. And I think one of the last days that I was leading a circle of women in that space, we went behind the building and we had flowers and we laid them down, and we went around and really thanked the space for everything it gave us and for all the people it served and how it helped us grow. And it was beautiful. It was a funeral for the business.
I love it. And I just love the power of bringing sacredness and rituals to letting go. And you've been such a guide and teacher in my life in doing that when I let go of Simple Green Smoothies, that we did something similar in your backyard, and like thanking the people and the memories and all the learning and lessons. And so I think it is very powerful to find ritual in grief and releasing and leaving with love. I love that so much. So you've been in a rebuilding phase, and something that I feature you in chapter 2 of the book, Simplify Your Life. And in that chapter, I open up kind of sharing my own created parable based on the Businessman and the Fisherman by Paulo Coelho. And kind of sharing your story inspired me because I have witnessed your growth and evolution with your business. And I know you've worked with a lot of coaches and strategists and different people along your business journey. And we're getting a lot of feedback of like, you've got something amazing here, like you've got to grow it, scale it, certifications, this, more classes, more teachers, franchise. Like there's just so many messages. Could you just share a little bit about that and then the shift to actually making your business more simple and slow and not from this like building and expansion and scale by any means necessary?
Yeah, I mean, definitely when I was in the physical brick and mortar, there was always talk of that. How are you going to franchise? What's next? I remember working with a coach who was all about scaling, licensing, certifying, and even when we were having those conversations, my body was already starting to not feel well, right? But it was like what I was being told. That's what's next. This is what you should do. This is how you're going to make a lot of money. Go do this, go do this. And my body just kept saying, nope, nope. And I remember I did lead a certification program there, and it was beautiful and amazing, but I got really clear after that that's just not my path, to certify and to keep expanding in that way. And now I am really focused on building a business that matches my own capacity, and that is really in devotion to who I am. And I don't run at that pace that some people do, I don't run a million miles an hour, but I believe, and I am growing a business of depth, and that can still make a lot of money without going for like the powerhouse moves,
Yeah. So you're rebuilding now, and it's interesting because you actually closed your business down even before the pandemic. So holy intuition, just like getting out of that. And now you're rebuilding. So I'm curious what feels the same and what feels different in rebuilding, because you're carrying that body of work that was born in that physical space. And you've also transitioned to be able to reach more people, but also grounding yourself back in physical space. So I would just love to kind of hear what is staying with you and what is shifting, changing.
Yeah, well, in my physical space, a couple of things were happening. There was the managing of all the people. We had yoga and massage and acupuncture and all these different services. So there was that side of the business. But then inside of it, I was also leading programs for women. And that was like where my heart and soul truly was. When I am leading, when I'm in a circle of women, I feel like I am in my element. Like that is my gift to the world. It's not managing 30 practitioners. And so what happened was the physical space closed and I got to take the heartbeat of what I was doing and what I love to do with me, which is my signature program and body of work is called the practice for women. And look at how do I want to build that? How do I want to lead? How do I want to teach in a really different way? And so now I'm very focused on building the practice, not all the other things anymore. And so now, through COVID, yes, thank God it closed down in time for that. I've been building a global community and sisterhood online and leading transformational programs online. So when you ask what feels the same, it's the heart of my work. What I do feels the same. What feels different is that I'm not holding all the other pieces that were not actually in service of my heart, of my core gift to this world. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes so much sense. I love it. And also just thinking about when we are burning something down or rebuilding, it's like, what are the things that we're taking out of the building? Because before we burn it all down, what are we taking with us? And what can we leave and let go of? And taking stock of like, what are the parts of my business that bring me joy, that make me feel alive, that make me feel that sense of self-devotion. Like this business is not, I'm not just giving and over giving to my clients, my customers. I am also being filled up, that it is a reciprocal flow of energy, right? Money is flowing, service is flowing, you are being fed, you have the capacity to show up and take care of your body as it heals, to be present for your family. I mean, we both have teen kids in high school. That's a whole other job. It's a whole new level where I don't know. Raising teens, it's like the same capacity of toddlerhood, but in a different, and really preparing them for they're going to be like on their own one day. So that's a lot of work and caretaking that comes in that space. So yes, I totally get what you're sharing. And I think that's a really beautiful way for all of us to think about what are the things that I want to take with me and what do I want to leave with love and let go of, so that I can rebuild a business that matches my capacity.
Yeah. And I'll add this, when I was closing, people were asking if I wanted to sell. And I spoke to a couple business advisors and people in that world. And they were like, well, if you want to sell it, you're going to need to sell the name, the practice, and that body of work, because that was actually what was frankly making that business stay alive, was the practice. And I was clear that, nope, I'm not selling that. That is my body of work. And so I left money on the table and just closed the door and chose not to sell because I wanted to keep that. That's like my sacred work. And so also I share that just to stay again in that place of listening of what's true and what do you really want as you leave the building, regardless of what other people are telling you is right.
Yeah.
What will make the most money, right? I probably could have made some money if I sold it, but that I knew that I wanted to continue on the journey. The practice wasn't done.
Yeah. No, and I feel like I know she's not just getting started, but she's got a new pair of shoes on. And I'm so excited for the growth, the expansion, the evolution. And even though you are moving slow, expansiveness is still happening. Growth is still happening. So we can give ourselves permission, as I say in the book, to be a slow cooker. And you and I have talked about this so many times. Like, even though it looks like we are doing nothing, there is so much simmering and thoughts and ideas that are brewing and marinating. And when it's time, like, it will be ready and it will be fully cooked and it will just flow out of us. I know even right now that you are updating copy and messaging, like this work never stops. You know, we think that, oh, if I just get this marketing plan in place and rinse and repeat, and that's the sustainable, scalable thing, but it's actually for our own inner growth and transformation that we transform in the process of serving others, that we are evolving. And so our messaging is going to evolve and shift. And the people we serve, they're growing too, that are following along. And so their needs, even if the container is the same and the consistency, but the body of work is living and it's breathing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has to change. I'm different. So it has to look different. And the woman that I'm serving is different because I continue to grow and evolve and up level my game, you know?
Yeah. And you talked about this earlier in our conversation, just around your mom. And I'm just curious if you would be able to just presence her, because she's been such a huge inspiration to your work, from starting the brick and mortar to she's serving you right now in the evolution of your messaging. If you could just presence her and what your kind of shift and insights and awareness in your relationship with your mom, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, I was actually just writing a new about page for my website, including this story. But yeah, my mother died about 14 years ago when I had just a 9-month-old baby and a second baby. I had just found out I was pregnant with the second one 3 days before she passed away. And she died of breast cancer at 56 years old. And so she's been a real catalyst and inspiration for me. And what I was writing about yesterday is that, you know, at that time I was midwifing my mother to her passing and also learning to be a mother myself. And it was like the deepest initiation challenge I've ever faced in life. And looking back, well, just to preface, my mom was amazing. She's like my soulmate. And she was the type of woman that many of us can relate to, that overgave and took on so much responsibility and said yes to everything and basically sacrificed herself and her life for others. And when she was diagnosed with cancer, before she passed away, it was like the cancer woke her up. She suddenly became liberated. She did not care anymore what people thought. She dyed her hair purple. She started wearing wild clothes, just things that she wouldn't have done in her conservative 1990s upper class suburbs that we lived in. And she was just like set free from the cancer. And so the gift of the cancer for her and for me as her daughter is that I got to see her full expression. I got to see my mother living, even though she was dying. And after she died, I was very inspired to open this healing center and help women so that they don't get sick and they don't die like my mom. And what happened, as I already shared with you, I got in there, I created this beautiful business with a great intention, and I got sick, not with cancer, but my own manifestation from doing the exact same thing my mom was doing, over giving, over serving. And I had this realization then that, oh my God, I am my mother. I'm living out her wounds and her patterns in my business. And that was my wake-up call. And these last several years have been about unraveling and awakening to that. And what the gift my mother left me was this gift of fully living, right? And so what I'm really coming into now is that I'm not here to live out my mother's wounds and her patterns. I needed to go there to see them and to feel them and to understand them so I can shift. But I'm not here to live that out. I am here to fully live. I am here to dye my hair purple and wear leopard print clothing and be completely unapologetic in my leadership, in the way I show up, and fully embodied in the work and what I'm here to serve. And so that's really the work that I'm doing now is meeting women at the gate of their own awakening. Maybe they've been in the underworld for a while. Maybe they've been struggling with illness or betrayal or loss or whatever it is. And it's same as me. It wakes you up. And same as my mother, like, I can't live like this anymore. I want to live no matter what. And then how do we do that as a woman? And how do we kind of create a new blueprint for our life and live by different codes than we've been raised in and by? So my mother is my teacher. From the other side, she continues to teach and show me the way forward. But that's where I am today, is wanting to meet my mom in that space of fully living.
Oh, I get so many chills from this because I knew the initial initiation story, but now it's like, and so seeing your mom in that space, but now I'm like, oh, I see her in her cheetah pants and her purple hair and fully expressed and just alive and bringing that energy. So beautiful. I'm like, I could just see you doing something where everyone wears their wild, like fully expressed self. Like if you didn't care, the mismatched socks, all the things, and like fully owning those parts of us, which I think is so beautiful. Is there a practice or something that your mom did with you that you are carrying forward with your own kids?
Just taking that question in.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that my mother taught me and showed me as a mother was unconditional love. She loved us no matter what. We could do no wrong. And she just loved. And so I think that is the gift that I really also received from my mother, in knowing how to mother my kids. And that is a practice, right? Like we practice that in the practice, that sense of unconditional love and that peace. But then taking it a step forward, how do I now do that for myself?
Yes.
And she showed me it. I felt it. I understood it from her as a mother. Now it's like taking it the next step forward, and holding myself in that.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful cycle in being parented, parenting, and then reparenting ourselves. And like, okay, so how do I love Zoe? What are the conversations, the invitations, the listening? I am a very present listener for my daughter. And it's like, oh, right, coming back to what you're saying, I need to listen to myself, that same patience and trust. So I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah. And I'm practicing that right now with my daughter, right? She's going through a hard time, and I just keep coming back. I have to also trust her. I have to show that I trust her so she's empowered to trust herself.
Yeah.
Parents, we want to like fix everything. I know. I'm like, well, we can do this and you can try that. I just have to trust her and trust that she can do this. She will find her way, and she'll be okay. And those were the parting words that my mom said to me the night before she died. The last words she said, "You're going to be okay." And I know that she meant that. Like, makes me emotional, just like on the deepest spiritual level. And we will be okay, right? We will be.
Yeah. Thank you to your mother, because we can all take that wisdom in and just like drink it up, allow it to fill and nourish our bodies and our souls and our nervous systems. So good. I'm like, I want to tattoo it on my arm. Well, we're coming to a close. It's just such a long overdue conversation, but also the perfect time to have this conversation with you that's recorded, because we have so many behind the scenes and in Voxer messages. And our family getaways and gatherings. And so this is just beautiful to bring our relationship and your body of work to the forefront. I know that you have a free group that people can join to kind of experience some of that listening and self-trust. How can people find you and learn more about the practice?
Yeah, we have a free Facebook group, The Practice for Women, where every Sunday I offer a Sunday service, which is just a 30-minute, very potent time where we gather as women and dive underneath the surface of all the noise and the chaos so that we can hear our own voice. And so it's the piece of the practice that I offer to the world every Sunday. And you can find that group, The Practice for Women. And you can also go to my website, The Practice for Women, and Sunday services on there. And I have deeper programs and offerings and retreats as well that are beautiful and growing. Yeah.
And if you live in Oregon, like such a gift to be in circle with you in person and online. But I've had the privilege of being in your circles, and they're really, really powerful. The work that you do is potent, and it does just bring you back to yourself, to come home, to come back to center, to your heart and your truth of what is really alive. So thank you for just sharing your work and your journey. And is there anything you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, one little thing just popped up. I have a sacred space here in Portland, Oregon, where it's nothing like my old big healing center. It's just a beautiful studio. It's like an old barn, but it feels like a church to me, very sacred space for women to gather. And that's here for local people, and I'll be leading retreats there. But more than that, when you asked me earlier, what feels the same or what I wanted to take away, I knew that I want and need to have a physical space to be doing this work in. It's so important for me to just sit with people in real time. And so I have that here now, and it's been so healing for me. I just come home from there, like in love with this work and the women that I serve. So that's here too.
I love that. And it made me think of how you were sharing about that to heal yourself. You can't be in the same environment. Mm-hmm. What was it? Where you got sick.
It's
where you got sick. So even having this physical space that you have, this cocoon, this sacred studio, that's a new environment that people can start to heal in. So it's, if being able to step away from your home or your business, that physical, being able to just step into a different environment that allows your nervous system to settle, to slow down, and to truly, truly listen.
And it's so beautiful. I love it. It's so pretty in there.
It is. I can't wait to be in your new space. And I just love you so much, Michelle. Thank you for our many years of friendship and just encouraging one another. I can't wait for more people to learn about your work.
And I can't wait for your book to be in every woman's hands who needs it.
She builds. She's here. She
builds and builds and builds and builds.
She builds, she rebuilds, she reimagines, she reinvents. Sometimes she burns things down and then she builds again. Yeah. All right. It was
I love you. Thank you.
Love you too. Thank you so much for your heart and attention and listening to Lead with Love. You can always get the links and resources mentioned in each episode over at leadwithlovepodcast.com so that you can build a sustainable business and live a creative life on your terms. If this message, Leading with Love, resonates with you and you want to take a stand for remembering that there are humans with beating hearts behind the numbers, I would love for you to subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave an honest review. It would mean the world to me, and it also helps more people spread more love in the world, which we really, really need. I also love hearing from you. So as you're listening, take a screenshot, share your favorite takeaway, and tag me on Instagram and Facebook at Jada Selner. I really appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.